The emergency room doors burst open at 2:47 a.m., and Kiara Hawkins looked up from her patient charts to see something that would change her life forever. A man strode through the chaos with the kind of presence that made even the most hardened ER staff pause mid-step. Tall, impeccably dressed despite the hour, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to calculate every angle of the room in seconds. Behind him, two men in dark suits carefully guided a frail elderly woman on a wheelchair, her face twisted in pain. But it was the way he moved, like he owned not just the room but the very air they breathed, that made Ciara's pulse quicken with something she couldn't name. Authority, danger, desperation carefully masked. "Someone help my mother. Now." His voice cut through the noise, accented but commanding, brooking no argument. Ciara stepped forward before she could think better of it, her exhaustion forgotten. "Sir, I'm Dr. Hawkins, let me help." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Yang Hwan-seok, a man who had seen everything, controlled everything, felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear, not of losing his mother, though that terror clawed at his chest, but of the woman with warm brown eyes who looked at him like he was just a worried son, not a monster. The fluorescent lights of Chicago Memorial Hospital's emergency room hummed with their usual 3 a.m. symphony of beeping monitors, hurried footsteps, and muffled conversations. Kiara Hawkins had been on her feet for 16 hours straight, her white coat wrinkled, her natural coils pulled back into a messy bun that had given up any pretense of professionalism hours ago. She was reviewing labs for a pneumonia patient when the atmosphere in the ER shifted. It was subtle at first, a ripple of tension that made the veteran nurses exchange glances, a security guard straightening his posture. Then she saw them, 3 men in suits that probably cost more than her monthly rent, moving with military precision through the automatic doors. The 2 flanking carried themselves like trained fighters, but it was the man in the center who commanded attention without trying. Yang Hwan-seok was not a man people forgot. At 36, he had the kind of face that cameras loved and enemies feared. Sharp jawline, intelligent dark eyes that missed nothing, and an air of casual menace wrapped in expensive tailoring. His black suit was perfectly pressed despite the late hour, his dark hair styled with deliberate care. A small tattoo peeked from his collar, Korean characters running vertically along the side of his neck in delicate script. But right now, that carefully controlled facade showed cracks. His mother, a tiny woman who looked lost in the wheelchair, clutched her abdomen with trembling hands, her face grey with pain. "Someone help my mother. Now." His voice carried the weight of someone used to immediate obedience. The charge nurse, Janet, a 40-year veteran who didn't intimidate easily, actually took a step back. Ciara didn't. She was too tired for fear, too focused on the patient's labored breathing and the way her vitals looked concerning even from across the room. "Sir, I'm Dr. Hawkins, let me help." She moved forward, already pulling on fresh gloves, her mind shifting into clinical mode. What are her symptoms? How long has she been in pain? Yang Hwan-seok's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, the ER fell away. She saw surprise flicker across his features, surprise and something else she couldn't name. Abdominal pain. Severe. Started 2 hours ago. His English was perfect, barely accented, but tension made his words clipped. "She has a history of gallstones." "Okay, let's get her into a room." Kiara was already moving, gesturing to a tech. "Room 7, and I need vitals, IV access, and lab stat. Sir, you'll need to—" "I'm coming with her." Not a request. Kiara met his eyes again, seeing the fear he was trying to hide beneath authority. She'd seen it before, loved ones terrified of losing someone, wielding whatever power they had like armor against helplessness. "Of course," she said softly. "Stay by her head, talk to her. She needs to hear your voice." Something shifted in his expression. His men moved to follow, but he raised a hand, stopping them with a single gesture. "Wait here." In room 7, Ciara worked with practiced efficiency, her hands gentle as she examined the elderly woman. "Mrs. Yang, I'm Dr. Hawkins. I'm going to take good care of you. Can you tell me where it hurts most?" The woman's response came in Korean, weak and pained. Yang Hwan-seok translated immediately, his hand holding his mother's with surprising tenderness. "Right upper quadrant. The pain radiates to her back and right shoulder. Kiara nodded, already suspecting acute cholecystitis. We'll get imaging right away. Mrs. Yang, I'm going to give you something for the pain. She looked up at Yang, noting how his jaw tightened. Sir, I need you to step back so we can get her IV in. My name is Yang Hwan-seok. He said it like he expected recognition, perhaps deference. Kiara simply nodded. Mr. Yang, please step back. For a man who commanded an empire built on fear and respect, being ordered around by an exhausted intern in wrinkled scrubs should have been offensive. Instead, Yang found himself obeying, watching as this woman, this beautiful, confident woman, worked with a calm competence that was somehow more commanding than any threat he could make. She was stunning, he realized, even in the harsh fluorescent light. Rich brown skin that seemed to glow despite her obvious exhaustion, expressive dark eyes that softened when she spoke to his mother, full lips curved in reassurance. When she leaned over to examine his mother, he noticed the delicate gold necklace at her throat, the way her scrubs couldn't quite hide the curves of her figure, the strength in her capable hands. Got it, the tech announced, securing the IV. Good. Morphine 4 mg IV. Then get her to imaging. CT abdomen with contrast. Kiara touched Mrs. Yang's hand gently. You're going to feel better soon, I promise. The older woman managed a weak smile, then said something in Korean. Yang's expression shifted, surprise, then something softer. She says you have kind hands, that she can see your good heart. Kiara felt warmth spread through her chest. Tell her thank you, and tell her that her son clearly loves her very much. As they wheeled Mrs. Yang toward imaging, Yang lingered, watching Kiara update the chart. She was aware of his gaze, that heavy attention that made her skin prickle with something between wariness and awareness. You're very good at your job, Dr. Hawkins. She glanced up, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. Thank you. Your mother should be fine. The imaging will confirm, but it looks like her gallbladder needs to come out. We have excellent surgeons here. How long have you been on shift? The question caught her off guard. I'm sorry. You're exhausted. I can see it. His eyes traced the shadows under her eyes, the way she leaned slightly against the counter. When did you last sleep? It was inappropriate, too personal, too observant, but something in his tone wasn't predatory. It was concerned. Long enough to take care of your mother properly, she said firmly, then softened. I'm fine. It's part of the job. That doesn't make it right. Before she could respond, her pager went off. I need to go. Your mother will be back in about 45 minutes. You can wait in the family room. I'll wait here. Kiara recognized the immovable tone. She nodded and hurried off, feeling his eyes follow her. Yang watched her go, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. In his world, people fell into two categories, useful or expendable. He'd built his empire on reading people, on seeing their weaknesses and exploiting them. He'd surrounded himself with loyalty, bought through fear and money, with beauty that was decorative but hollow. But this woman, this intern who looked at him with nothing but professional courtesy, who commanded respect through competence rather than fear, who touched his mother with such gentle care, she was neither useful nor expendable. She was dangerous, not because of what she could do to him, but because of what she made him feel, like he was human, like he was just a son worried about his mother, like the blood on his hands and the empire built on violence might wash away under the warmth of her smile. When Mrs. Yang returned from imaging, Kiara met them with a tablet showing the scans. Acute cholecystitis with complications. She needs surgery tonight. She looked at Yang directly. I've consulted with Dr. Morrison, our best general surgeon. He can do it laparoscopically if we move now. Do it! Yang's voice was hard, decisive, then quieter. Please, we'll take good care of her. Kiara squeezed his mother's hand, then, impulsively moved by the fear she saw breaking through his control, touched Yang's arm briefly. She's strong. She'll be fine. The contact lasted less than a second, but Yang felt it like electricity. He watched as she walked away to coordinate the surgery, already barking orders, commanding respect from nurses twice her age. He pulled out his phone, texting his second-in-command. Find out everything about Dr. Sierra Hawkins. Everything. He told himself it was about gratitude, about ensuring the woman who saved his mother was protected. But deep down, he knew it was something else entirely, something infinitely more dangerous than gratitude. The surgical waiting room at 4 a.m. was a liminal space, too quiet, too bright, filled with people existing in the suspended reality of fear and hope. Yang Hwan-seok sat alone in the corner, his men stationed outside at his orders. This vulnerability, this waiting, was not something he wanted witnesses for. He'd built his reputation on control, on being 3 steps ahead, on never showing weakness. But here, in this sterile room with motivational posters and year-old magazines, he was just a son terrified of losing the only person who'd ever loved him unconditionally. "Mr. Yang?" He looked up to find Dr. Hawkins approaching, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She'd somehow found time to smooth her hair back, though exhaustion still shadowed her eyes. "I thought you might need this." She offered him a cup. "It's terrible hospital coffee, but it's hot." Yang stared at the cup like it might be poisoned, not because he suspected her, but because the gesture was so unexpectedly kind. In his world, kindness always came with strings attached. "You should be sleeping, Dr. Hawkins." "My shift doesn't end for another 3 hours." She sat 2 chairs away, close enough to talk, far enough to be professional. "And I wanted to check on you. Surgery should take another 90 minutes. You don't have other patients?" "I do, but I can take 5 minutes." She sipped her own coffee, made a face. "God, that's awful. Anyway, your mother spoke very highly of you before the anesthesia. She said you built an empire to protect her." Yang's jaw tightened. What exactly had his mother said? What did this woman think she knew? Kiara noticed his tension. "Relax, Mr. Yang. She was heavily medicated and speaking Korean. I didn't understand the details, but a mother's pride is universal." She smiled softly. "She's very proud of you." "She shouldn't be." The words came out harder than intended. Kiara studied him with those intelligent eyes that seemed to see too much. "Why do you say that?" "You don't know me, Dr. Hawkins." "No, I don't. But I know you brought your mother here at 3 a.m. I know you held her hand through the pain. I know you haven't left this waiting room." She paused. "That tells me something. It tells you I love my mother. That's the bare minimum of human decency. You'd be surprised how many people don't clear that bar." She stood and he found himself disappointed. "Try to rest, Mr. Yang. I'll come find you as soon as she's out of surgery." "Dr. Hawkins." She turned back. "Why are you being kind to me?" The question clearly surprised her. "Because you're worried about your mother, because you needed coffee, because that's what we do here." She tilted her head. "Why do you find kindness suspicious?" Before he could answer, before he could explain that kindness in his world was a weapon, a manipulation, a prelude to betrayal, her pager went off again. "I have to go. Hang in there." And she was gone, leaving him with cooling coffee and questions he couldn't answer. The surgery took 2 hours. Dr. Morrison, a gruff man in his 50s, found Yang still sitting in the same spot. "Mr. Yang, your mother came through beautifully. Dr. Hawkins was right. We got it laparoscopically. Minimal invasion. She'll be in recovery for about an hour, then we'll move her to a room." Relief hit Yang like a physical blow. He stood, extending his hand. "Thank you." Morrison shook it, then added, "That intern of ours has good instincts. Caught the complications early. You were lucky she was on shift." Lucky. Yang didn't believe in luck. He believed in fate, in karma, in the universe's cruel sense of irony. But maybe, just this once, luck had been on his side. When his mother was moved to her room, Yang sat beside her bed, holding her hand as she slept off the anesthesia. Dawn was breaking outside the window, painting Chicago's skyline in shades of amber and rose. "Hwan-seok." His mother's voice was weak but present. She spoke in Korean, as she always did. "That doctor, she's special. She's skilled, Ioma. You're in good hands." "That's not what I mean." His mother's eyes, still sharp despite her age, fixed on him knowingly. "I saw how you looked at her. Ioma, please rest. I'm old, not blind, and not dead yet despite this traitorous gallbladder." She squeezed his hand weakly. "When was the last time you looked at someone like they were a person, not a piece on your chessboard?" Yang had no answer for that. "She has a good heart. I can see these things. Your father used to say I could see people's souls." His mother's eyes drifted closed. "Maybe it's time you let someone see yours." Kiara returned at 7 a.m., just as her shift was ending. She found Yang exactly where she'd left him, stubbled now, his perfect appearance finally showing cracks. His jacket was draped over the chair, sleeves rolled up, revealing surprisingly muscular forearms, and she blinked. Were those tattoos? Just glimpses of ink disappearing under his sleeves, more Korean characters she couldn't read. Mr. Yang. He looked up, and she was struck by how vulnerable he seemed. Your mother's doing great. All vitals are stable. She'll be sore for a few days, but she should make a full recovery. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. He stood, and she realized just how tall he was, at least 6'2", towering over her 5'7" frame, even in her sneakers. I owe you a debt. You don't owe me anything. I was doing my job. Nevertheless, he pulled a business card from his wallet, held it out. If you ever need anything at all. Tiara took the card, noting the embossed logo, some kind of corporation she didn't recognize. Just a phone number and his name, no title. That's very kind, but please. His intensity pinned her in place. I mean it. You helped my mother. In my culture, that debt is sacred. There was something in his eyes, something that made her think debt meant something different in his world than in hers, something binding and possibly dangerous, but she was too tired to analyze it. She pocketed the card. Get some rest, Mr. Yang, and make sure your mother follows the post-op instructions. Dr. Hawkins. She paused at the door. Do you work tomorrow night? Red flags should have been waving. A patient's family member asking about her schedule was inappropriate at best, creepy at worst, but something in his tone wasn't predatory. Why do you ask? Because I'd like to bring you dinner, as thanks. That's really not necessary. You've been on your feet for over 20 hours. You helped my mother. Please let me do this one small thing. He smiled, and the transformation was startling. Warmth breaking through that cold authority. I promise I'm not a serial killer. That surprised a laugh out of her. Well, that's reassuring. So you'll let me bring dinner? Every professional instinct told her to refuse. Every ounce of self-preservation warned her that this man was dangerous in ways she didn't understand. But exhaustion made her reckless. Or maybe it was the memory of his hand holding his mother's with such tenderness, or the way he'd said please like the word was foreign to him. One dinner, here at the hospital during my break. His smile widened. Tomorrow night. What time? 8 p.m., but Mr. Yang, nothing fancy, I mean it. As you wish, Dr. Hawkins. As she walked away, Kiara wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Her best friend Simone was going to kill her. You don't accept dinner from mysterious men with dangerous eyes and neck tattoos, even if they are devoted sons. Behind her, Yang watched her disappear around the corner, then pulled out his phone. She said yes. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. I need the best Korean food in Chicago delivered hot. And flowers. What kind of flowers do women like? His second-in-command's response was immediate. Boss, are you okay? Did you hit your head? Yang smiled despite himself. Just find out. And June? Not a word of this to anyone. He looked at his sleeping mother who was smiling in her sleep. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time he let someone see him as more than a monster, even if that someone had no idea what kind of monster he really was. True to his word, Yang Hwan-seok appeared at exactly 8 p.m. the following evening, carrying enough food to feed 6 people and a bouquet of peonies that made the nurses' station collectively swoon. Ciara, coming off a relatively calm shift, stopped short when she saw him in the break room doorway. He'd traded the severe suit for dark slacks and a crisp white shirt with the top 4 buttons undone, revealing that strong chest and the delicate Korean script tattoo trailing down the side of his neck. His hair was slightly less perfect, and somehow that made him even more devastating. Mr. Yang, you actually came. Did you think I wouldn't? He set the bags on the break room table, and the smell of Korean BBQ, japchae, and kimchi filled the small space. I keep my promises, Dr. Hawkins. It's Kiara, and you really didn't have to bring this much food. I didn't know what you liked, so I brought options. He started unpacking containers with surprising domesticity. Also, I was informed by my assistant that bringing too little food is insulting in any culture, so I may have overcompensated. That made her laugh. She grabbed paper plates from the cabinet, hyper-aware of his presence in the small room. Your mother, how is she? Complaining about the hospital food, which the nurses tell me is a good sign. She's been asking about you. Has she? Kiara sat, accepting the plate he filled with practiced ease. That's sweet. She wants to thank you personally. I think she's also plotting ways to get you to visit. He paused. She's a determined woman. I wonder where you get it from. The words slipped out, and Kiara immediately regretted them. Too familiar, too flirtatious. But Yang just smiled. That devastating smile that softened the dangerous edge. Eat, please. You look like you haven't had a real meal in days. He wasn't wrong. Ciara's typical diet consisted of vending machine coffee and whatever she could grab between patients. The food was incredible, authentic and clearly expensive. Nothing like the Korean fusion places near her apartment. This is amazing, she said around a mouthful of bulgogi. Where's it from? A place in Koreatown. The owner owes me a favor. The way he said favor made her pause. There was weight to that word, implications she wasn't sure she wanted to examine. What do you do, Mr. Yang? You said your mother mentioned you built an empire. His expression shuddered slightly. Import, export, international trade, boring business stuff. It was a lie, or at least not the full truth. Ciara had spent enough time in Chicago's ER to recognize the markers, the way people deferred to him, the expensive suit at 3 a.m., those watchful men who'd waited outside, the tattoo that probably meant something in certain circles. But she was also smart enough not to push. Not here, not now. Well, your boring business must be successful. Successful enough. He changed the subject smoothly. Tell me about you. How does someone end up working 20-hour shifts in an ER? Medical school and a desire to help people, she shrugged. Plus crushing student debt that requires a lot of shifts. How much debt? The question was too direct, too intimate. Kiara set down her fork. Why? Curiosity. In my experience, debt is often what traps people in situations they shouldn't be in. I'm not trapped. I chose this. Did you? Or did circumstances choose it for you? The observation cut too close to the bone. Yes, she'd wanted to be a doctor, but she'd also been the only one in her family to make it to college, carrying the weight of her mother's sacrifices, her father's early death, her younger brother's expectations. The debt wasn't just financial. It was familial, communal, existential. That's pretty philosophical for a businessman. I'm a man of many depths, Dr. Hawkins. His eyes held hers, and the intensity made her breath catch. Most people only see the surface. What would I see if I looked deeper? The question hung between them, charged with something neither of them wanted to name. Yang leaned forward slightly, and Kiara was suddenly aware of how small the break room was, how alone they were. That depends on whether you're brave enough to look. Her pager went off, shattering the moment. Trauma incoming. Kiara stood quickly, professionalism snapping back into place. I have to go. Thank you for dinner, Mr. Yang. Hwan Seok. His voice was soft but insistent. My friends call me Hwan Seok. Are we friends? I'd like to be. Something in his tone made her pause. Not predatory, not manipulative. Just honest. Vulnerable even. Hwan Seok, she said, testing the name. Thank you for dinner. It was really kind. Can I see you again? Not as a patient's son, but as a friend. Every rational part of her brain screamed no. This man was trouble. Expensive, dangerous trouble wrapped in beautiful packaging. But her heart, her foolish, exhausted, lonely heart, whispered yes. My shift ends at midnight. If you're still here, and you promise to answer one honest question, then yes. Deal. He was there at midnight, leaning against his sleek black car in the hospital parking lot like something out of a movie. Kiara approached cautiously, suddenly aware that she was alone with this man in a dark parking lot. You waited. I said I would. He opened the passenger door. Let me drive you home. That's not necessary. It's nearly 1 a.m. and this neighborhood isn't safe. Please, Kiara, let me do this. The use of her first name sent warmth through her. Against her better judgment, she got in the car. Some expensive model she couldn't identify. All leather and subtle luxury. Where do you live? She gave him her address, and he pulled out smoothly. The city was quiet at this hour. Streetlights painting everything in amber. You said one honest question, he prompted. Kiara took a breath. Are you dangerous? She felt rather than saw his surprise. That's your question? Yes, because you are, aren't you? Those men at the hospital, the way people react to you, the tattoos, the favors owed. You're not just some businessman. Silence stretched between them. Yang's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Yes, he finally said. I'm dangerous. To my enemies, to people who threaten what's mine, to anyone who stands in my way. He glanced at her and his eyes were hard, honest. But I would never hurt you, Kiara, that's a promise. Why? That's 2 questions. Answer it anyway. He pulled up to her apartment building, a modest complex in a working-class neighborhood, worlds away from his glittering penthouse life. He turned to face her fully, because when you looked at me in that ER, you saw a scared son, not a monster, because you touched my hand with kindness, not fear, because in my entire life, only 2 women have ever looked at me like I was worth something beyond what I could do for them, my mother and you. Tiara's breath caught. Hwan Seok, I know I shouldn't feel this way. I know you're smart enough to stay away from men like me, but I'm also selfish enough to hope you won't. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose curl behind her ear. I'd like to see you again. Properly. A real date, not hospital break room dinners. She should say no. Everything in her screamed danger, run, protect yourself, but his touch was so gentle, and his eyes held such naked hope. One date, she whispered, but you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll be honest with me. I don't need to know details, but don't lie to me. I've had enough of men who lie. Pain flickered across his face. Someone hurt you. That's not your question to ask. Fair enough. He squeezed her hand gently. I promise. No lies between us. It was a promise he'd come to regret, because the truth was so much worse than any lie. As she climbed out of the car, Kiara felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to jump, without knowing if there was water or rocks below. Good night, Hwan Seok. Good night, Kiara. Dream well. She would. For the first time in months, she'd dream of something other than medical procedures and exhaustion. She'd dream of dangerous men with gentle hands and eyes that held secrets deep enough to drown in. Their first official date was at a small Korean restaurant in Koreatown, intimate, authentic, far from the glittering world Yang usually inhabited. He'd wanted to take her somewhere impressive, but Kiara had insisted on normal. Normal, he was discovering, was surprisingly perfect. Try this, Kiara said, expertly wielding her chopsticks to offer him a piece of Korean fried chicken she'd insisted on ordering. I know you probably eat this all the time, but humor me. Yang accepted the bite, amused by her enthusiasm. In 3 weeks of dating, stolen hours between her shifts, late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn, carefully planned encounters that somehow felt spontaneous, he discovered that Ciara approached everything with the same passionate engagement. Medicine, food, conversation, life itself. She made him want to be present in his own life instead of just surviving it. It's good, he admitted. Good. It's amazing. She laughed, and the sound made something in his chest tighten. You're such a critic. I'm refined. You're spoiled, says the woman who puts hot sauce on everything. That's culture, not spoiling. She grinned at him, her eyes warm in the restaurant's soft lighting. She'd worn her hair natural today, coils framing her face, and a simple green dress that made her skin glow. She was breathtaking, and Yang was in serious trouble. He'd known it for weeks now, known from that first moment in the ER that this woman was going to unravel him. But he'd underestimated how completely she'd invade his carefully controlled world, how her laugh would become the soundtrack he craved, how her texts would be the highlight of his dangerous days, how the thought of her in danger would make him reckless in ways that terrified him. What are you thinking? Kiara asked, catching his expression. That I like you, more than is probably wise. Probably? She raised an eyebrow. That's not very romantic. I'm not a romantic man, Ciara. I'm practical, careful. I plan everything. He reached across the table, taking her hand. But you make me want to be reckless. Is that a bad thing? In my world? Yes. He traced circles on her palm, marveling at the softness of her skin. Reckless men in my business don't live long. There it was, the closest he'd come to admitting what he really did. Kiara's eyes sharpened. Your business. We need to talk about that. Yang's jaw tightened. Why? Because I'm not stupid, Hwan Seok. I've been in Chicago ERs long enough to recognize certain things. The respect mixed with fear, the way you carry yourself, the friends who call at odd hours. She squeezed his hand. I'm not asking you to confess to crimes. I'm asking you to respect me enough to acknowledge reality. He wanted to deflect, to lie, to protect her from the truth, but he'd promised honesty. I run an organization, he said carefully. Import-export is part of it, but we handle other interests. Territory, protection, certain businesses that operate outside conventional boundaries. You're in the Mafia. The word hung between them. Yang waited for disgust, for fear, for her to pull away. Instead, Kiara just nodded slowly. Okay. I mean, I suspected. And honestly, it explains a lot. She met his eyes steadily. I'm not going to pretend I'm thrilled about it, but I also know that people are complicated. You're not defined by your worst actions. You don't know my worst actions, Kiara. No, I don't. And I don't need to know every detail. She leaned forward, and her next words were fierce. But I know you held your mother's hand in that hospital. I know you tip every service worker generously. I know you've spent the last 3 weeks learning about my life, my family, my dreams. That's who I'm choosing to see. You're choosing to see the best of me because you want to believe I'm good. But Kiara, I'm not. I've done things. Everyone has done things they regret. Everyone has darkness. She held his gaze unflinching. The question is, are you trying to be better? Or are you content being the monster everyone expects? No one had ever asked him that, not even his mother. I don't know if I can be better. Maybe not, but you can try. She smiled softly. And for what it's worth, I think you're already more than you believe. Yang felt something crack in his chest, some carefully constructed wall he'd built to survive his brutal world. This woman, this beautiful, brilliant, naive woman, saw him, truly saw him. And instead of running, she was staying. He was halfway in love with her, maybe more than halfway. Come with me, he said suddenly. There's somewhere I want to take you. He drove her to a private rooftop in downtown Chicago, one of his properties, secured and safe. The city spread below them like a carpet of lights, beautiful and brutal. I come here when I need to think, he explained, leading her to the edge where glass panels kept them safe, when the weight of everything feels too heavy. It's beautiful, Kiara breathed, pressing close to see the view. Yang moved behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, chin resting on her head. She fit against him perfectly, like she'd been designed for this exact position. My father built our organization on blood and fear, he said quietly. When he died, I was 22, barely trained, drowning in enemies who smelled weakness. I did what I had to do to survive, to protect my mother, to hold our territory. You were so young. I grew up fast. Had to. His arms tightened. I became exactly what the job required, cold, ruthless, untouchable. I've made decisions that keep me awake at night. Hurt people who probably deserved it and some who didn't. Built an empire on things that would make you sick. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand what you're getting into. If you stay with me, Ciara, there will be danger. People will try to use you against me. My world is brutal and it doesn't forgive softness. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to be honest. You deserve the truth before you get in too deep. Hwan Seok. She cupped his face, and her touch was so gentle it hurt. I'm already in deep. I think I have been since that night in the ER. You should run. Smart women run from men like me. Good thing I've never been that smart. She smiled, then turned serious. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll keep me in the loop, not about business details, but about dangers. If I'm going to be with you, I need to know when I'm at risk. Don't hide things from me to protect me. That's how people get hurt. It went against every instinct. His entire existence was about controlling information, protecting assets, keeping vulnerabilities hidden. But she was looking at him with such trust. I promise, he whispered. And then he kissed her. It was their first kiss. Soft at first, tentative, then deepening into something that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Ciara made a small sound of surprise pleasure, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. Yang pulled her closer, pouring weeks of wanting into the contact, and when they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Wow, Kiara managed. Yeah. Yang rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, Kiara Hawkins. Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me this is moving too fast and I'll slow down, but please don't tell me you don't feel this too. I feel it, she whispered. God help me. I feel it too. They stayed on that rooftop until dawn, wrapped in each other, talking about everything and nothing, and for the first time in his brutal life, young Hwan-seok felt something he'd never experienced before. Hope. 3 days later, that hope would nearly destroy them both. The text came at 2 a.m. while Kiara was in the middle of stitching up a drunk driver. Stay home, don't go anywhere, I'll explain soon. H. She frowned at her phone between sutures, unease prickling down her spine. Hwan-seok never gave orders like that, never presumed to control her movements despite the protective streak she'd learned to recognize. By 3 a.m. he still hadn't explained. She called between patients. The number you have dialed cannot be reached. Her unease became fear. By 6 a.m., when her shift ended and she'd heard nothing, fear became terror. She called the hospital where his mother was recovering, only to learn Mrs. Yang had been discharged early under family protection. Something was very, very wrong. Kiara broke protocol and called the number on his business card, the one he'd said was for emergencies only. A man answered in Korean, then switched to accented English. Who is this? Dr. Kiara Hawkins. I'm looking for Hwan-seok. Is he okay? Silence then. Stay where you are. Someone will come get you. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, one of Hwan-seok's men, Jun, she remembered, his second in command, pulled up to the hospital. His face was grim. Get in, Dr. Hawkins. Now. Not until you tell me what's happening. Is Hwan-seok hurt? He's alive. That's all I can say here. Jun's eyes scanned the parking lot nervously. Please, we need to move. The drive took them to a safe house in the suburbs, nondescript, heavily guarded. Jun led her through security and into a living room where Hwan-seok stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. His shirt was torn, blood on his collar, a bruise darkening his jaw. Ciara's medical training kicked in before her heart could break. You're hurt. He turned, and relief flooded his features before his expression shuttered. He ended the call. You shouldn't be here. Your guard literally brought me here. What happened? Rival organization. His voice was flat, devoid of the warmth she'd come to crave. They found out about you. Made a move on my mother's hospital. We handled it. Handled it how? You don't want to know. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. She crossed to him, reaching for his face, but he caught her wrists, gently but firmly. Hwan-seok, talk to me. They had pictures of you, Tiara. Your apartment, your schedule, places you go. They were planning to use you against me. His eyes were haunted, because I was stupid enough to care about you publicly, stupid enough to think I could have something good without it being destroyed. But they didn't get me. I'm fine. This time. What about next time? Or the time after that? He released her, turning away. I can't protect you if you're with me. Every moment you're in my life, you're a target. So, what are you saying? I'm saying this was a mistake. Us. All of it. The words came out mechanical, rehearsed. You should go back to your life, forget about me. Find some normal guy who can give you dinner dates without worrying about sniper rifles. Ciara felt like she'd been slapped. You're breaking up with me because you're scared. I'm ending this because I'm practical. Because the math is simple. You with me equals you in danger. You without me equals you safe. Don't I get a say in this? No. He finally looked at her, and the coldness in his eyes was devastating. I'm the one with enemies, Kiara. I'm the one who brought this into your life, so I'm the one ending it. You promised no lies between us. Don't lie now. She moved closer, forcing him to look at her. You're not doing this to protect me. You're doing it because you're terrified of caring about someone. Because letting me in means giving me power to hurt you. Maybe both things are true. Hwan-seok, Dr. Hawkins. The formal address was a knife between them. Thank you for your care of my mother. I've arranged a payment to your student loans as thanks. You'll find them cleared by end of business today. Kiara recoiled like he'd struck her. You're paying me off. That's what you think this is? I'm expressing gratitude. You're trying to reduce what we had to a transaction. Tears burned her eyes, rage and hurt warring in her chest. I don't want your money, you arrogant ass. I want you. The real you, not this robot trying to protect himself by pushing everyone away. Then you want something that doesn't exist. His mask was perfect now, every emotion locked away. Jun will drive you home. Don't contact me again. He walked out, leaving her standing in the safe house with her heart in pieces. For 2 weeks, Kiara tried to move on. She threw herself into work, picked up extra shifts, avoided anywhere she might run into him. Her loans were paid off. She'd confirmed it with trembling hands, then immediately tried to refuse the payment before realizing she couldn't without his account information. He'd tied up that loose end perfectly. Simone, her best friend, found her crying in the hospital break room on day 12. Okay, that's it. I'm staging an intervention. Simone sat beside her, pulling her into a hug. Spill everything. So Kiara did. The whole story. The ER meeting, the dates, the kiss on the rooftop, the brutal ending. When she finished, Simone was quiet for a long moment. That man is an idiot, she finally said. He's trying to protect me. He's trying to protect himself. Big difference. Simone squeezed her hand. Question is, are you going to let him? What choice do I have? He made it clear he doesn't want me in his life. Kiara Hawkins, you survived medical school. You survived being broken, exhausted, and doubted. You think you're going to let some emotionally constipated mafia boss tell you what you can handle? He's dangerous. So is crossing the street. So is living in this city. So is loving anyone. Simone's eyes softened. Real question. Do you love him? Did she? It had been 6 weeks total. Barely enough time to know someone's favorite color, let alone their soul. But she thought about his gentleness with his mother, his vulnerability on that rooftop, the way he looked at her like she was precious, the way he'd held her like she might disappear. Yes, she whispered. I think I do. Then fight for him. Not because he's some prize to win, but because he's a traumatized man who thinks he doesn't deserve good things. Show him he's wrong. Kiara found him at his mother's bedside. Mrs. Yang had been readmitted with post-op complications. He looked up when she entered, shock flickering across his features before his mask slammed down. Dr. Hawkins, I requested Dr. Morrison. He's in surgery, you get me. She moved to check Mrs. Yang's vitals, hyper-aware of his presence. Infection in the surgical site. She needs IV antibiotics. Whatever you recommend. They worked in silence, Kiara giving orders to nurses, Huan Seok hovering anxiously. When Mrs. Yang was settled, Kiara should have left. Instead, she followed him to the hallway. You look terrible. He did, thinner, shadows under his eyes. The bruise on his jaw faded, but replaced by a haunted expression. I'm fine. You're a liar. She crossed her arms. I'm not here to beg, Huan Seok. I'm here to tell you that you're a coward. His eyes flashed. Excuse me. You're terrified of being happy, of letting someone love you. So you pushed me away, using my safety as an excuse. She stepped closer. But here's the thing. I've spent 2 weeks being safe, and I've been miserable. I'll take dangerous and happy over safe and hollow any day. Kiara, I'm not done. You don't get to decide what risks I take. You don't get to push me away for my own good. If I want to be with a man who has enemies and complications, that's my choice. Her voice cracked. And I choose you, even when you're being an idiot. People will come after you. This won't be the last time. Then teach me to protect myself. Give me security, whatever it takes. She grabbed his shirt, pulling him down to her eye level. But don't you dare give up on us without giving me a chance to fight. You could die. I could die crossing the street tomorrow. I could die in this ER from an angry patient. Life has no guarantees, Huan Seok. She softened, cupping his face. But I guarantee that these last 2 weeks without you have been hell. So please, stop protecting me from yourself and just let me in. He broke. His arms came around her, crushing her against him, his face buried in her neck. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. I know, but you're not alone anymore. We figured this out together. She held him as tightly as he held her. Together, okay? Together, he whispered. God, I missed you. I missed you too, you impossible man. They stood there in the hospital hallway, 2 broken people choosing to be whole together, and somehow that felt like the bravest thing either of them had ever done. 6 months later, Chiara stood in the kitchen of Juan Sioc's penthouse, their penthouse now, teaching his mother how to make her grandmother's sweet potato pie. Mrs. Yang had fully recovered and had appointed herself Chiara's personal Korean cooking instructor, a role she took extremely seriously. No, like this, Mrs. Yang demonstrated, her hands moving with practiced ease. You must feel the dough. I'm trying, Yoma, Chiara laughed, flour dusting her nose. From the living room, Juan Seok watched them, Jun standing beside him. You're smiling, Jun observed. It's disturbing. Shut up. No, seriously, you look almost human. Should I call a doctor? Your doctor is covered in flour and murdering my mother's recipe. I heard that, Chiara called out. Life had changed in 6 months. Chiara had moved in, taken self-defense classes, learned to recognize Juan Seok's security team. She'd set boundaries. She still worked at the hospital, still maintained her own identity, refused to be just the boss's girlfriend. Juan Seok had respected every boundary, even when it killed him to let her walk into danger. They'd had fights, spectacular ones, usually about his overprotectiveness or her stubborn independence. But they'd also had quiet mornings drinking coffee, late nights talking about everything, moments of perfect peace. She'd met the organization, carefully, formally, with Juan Seok establishing clear rules about respect. Most had been wary at first, but her refusal to be intimidated and her genuine care for their boss had won over even the skeptics. Juan Seok, his mother called. Come taste. He obeyed, accepting the spoon Chiara offered with exaggerated ceremony. The pie filling was actually pretty good. Acceptable, he declared. Acceptable? Chiara threw a dish towel at him. It's delicious. It's acceptable, he repeated, but he was grinning as he pulled her close, despite his mother's laughing protests about getting flour on his clothes. Later that night, wrapped in each other in the darkness, Chiara whispered, Happy? Terrifyingly so, Juan Seok admitted. You. Completely. And for a man who'd spent his life in darkness, that simple happiness was the most dangerous, most precious thing he'd ever dared to keep.